What's up, everybody? This is of Mountains and Men. My name is Rhys
And I'm Peter Myers.
and we're going to do something a little different today. We're actually going to talk about mountains.
Yeah, we were trying to figure out what to do for this episode, and I think we realized we talked a lot about men, really, when you think about it, because we've talked about
I don't like
what
how you
it
said
means to
that,
be
but
a-
yeah.
what?
I don't like how you said that.
All right, that's not what I mean.
I'm just messing with you.
No, yeah, we've talked about like philosophy and theology around men and what it means to be a person and community, all these things, but we wanted to just do something a little more lighthearted and fun today, and just talk about mountains.
Let's talk about mountains. Now, when we had our first episode, we originally talked about why it's called Of Mountains and Men, because we believe the mountains are where we encounter God, and we meant mountains literally, but also symbolically.
Yep,
At the same
exactly.
time, where there are mountains in life where we encounter God, the high points, and we're journeying towards the mountains, which is difficult. If anyone's ever climbed a mountain before, have you ever climbed a mountain, Peter?
Not strictly speaking, I don't think. I've hiked up a few mild hill type mountains, but never like a real, like the closest thing probably was when I was in the Great Smokies.
Okay, no, that's legit. That's legit.
But
Those are mountains.
even that, we didn't do like a huge, super long climb. We did a few miles, I think.
Want to hear something that pisses me off? The highest peak in the Smokies, or the highest point in the Smokies, is a platform built on top of the mountain.
Wait, but isn't it that one mountain? Why am I blanking on the name of it? There's a mountain, right? That's the highest point on the East Coast.
I think the highest point on the East Coast,
in the
let me
Smokies.
check.
But I forget what it's called.
Is
Mount Mitchell, maybe? Is that what it's called? Is it Mount Mitchell?
highest point
I should know this. I was there.
in Smoky Mountains is Clingman's Dome. See, yeah, because it's a dome that they put on top of the mountain.
But what mountain is it on? Does it say?
At 6,643 feet, Clingman's Dome is the highest point in the Great Smoky Mountain National Park. It doesn't say what type of mountain it is on top of. Let's see.
I think that might be that might be the platform that we were on, actually, because I remember that. So I went with my friends Luke and Zach, now Father Luke, and actually soon, well, by the time this airs, Father Zach. But we went up to the top of the mountain, and then also there was like a viewing platform thing that people could get on. So I wonder if I was actually on that point.
So Mount Mitchell is the tallest mountain on the East Coast in North Carolina. So it's in the Smokies in the United States, east of the Mississippi River at 6,684 feet.
Yeah, so it must be that thing must be on top of it, because I remember that we went up to the top of Mount Mitchell, and there's like a platform thing that you can go up on.
That makes me so mad, though.
That is, I agree. That is ridiculous. That like, of course, but that's what humans do. We always like do goofy things like that. Like, here's this really high peak. Let's build a platform on top of it so that we can go up even higher and look out.
That makes me so mad. And here's why I think they do it. Is because a lot of the East Coast mountains, not all of them, like up in Maine, there's some pretty mountains, but and the Smokies are pretty too. I've been there in the winter before. I thought it was gorgeous. But I think the thing is a lot of those mountains are not past the tree line. So when you get on top of those mountains, you're not getting the best vantage point, because a lot of the visual appeal is blocked by evergreen trees, which are beautiful. But, you want to get to high points so you can look and see.
But you know what the most important thing is to do when you get to the top of the mountain, right?
What?
Is take pictures.
Take pictures. Yeah, so that's why that's built. 100% why that's built.
I'm making a joke, obviously, because that's one of the things that for years I've reflected on, like, and I did it a little bit myself for a while, and then I've like tried to kind of cut down on that some of like we as humans do this weird thing now that we have like cameras and phones and everything all over the place, that like we'll go to some like really beautiful like nature thing or like a work of art or something,
or a concert,
and then we'll be like, yeah, actually the concert one is fascinating too. Like I was at a concert a few months back, like, and
what concert?
Judah and the Lion.
You saw Judah and the Lion? Where at?
Here in Maryland, or down in DC, maybe. I forget.
Did you say a few years back?
No. Like it was in like November or October.
Oh, sweet.
They're coming back like later this year.
No, I would like to go to concerts, but I'm just not in that state of life where concerts are practical.
I mean, yeah.
But
I've actually never been a huge concert person because most of the time I think they're too loud. But
Well, they're probably really loud to you. Like they're probably almost a little overstimulating because of your sensitivity.
Why do you say that?
Because your sensitivity to hearing, because of your vision.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I just find them very loud personally.
Well, because I remember you talked about like if you and I are in a public place having a conversation, you cannot help but notice the other conversations around you because your ears pick up on them easier.
Yeah.
And so it's almost like overstimulating and you can't focus. But
I also just think it's like not healthy for humans because like they're like the decibel level. Like we were pretty close because the venue we were at was like a cool venue. It was kind of small in like a good kind of way, but that meant that like with how close we were, like when they boom, like things. Sorry to everyone listening, but that is kind of an imitation of what it sounds like when they do that. Like your ears are like exploding because it's like so close and so profoundly loud that I don't know. I think that's like crazy, like a little obnoxiously loud in my opinion. But I enjoyed the music and like the band and everything. But it's just interesting because like so many people will like have their phones out and they're taking videos and stuff of the concert, to your point, while you're at the concert. And we do that with mountains. We do it with, other like literally I've seen people do that with like museums though too now, where people like go to a museum and they're taking pictures of the like art or the like exhibit things at the museum. And it's like, that's the point of the museum, is that you go and see it in person. If you wanted to get a picture of it, you could just look online. Like nowadays with the internet, like, but it's fascinating because getting back to the mountain thing of like how we have this beautiful work of nature. And I think that's your point about the tree line things. I've noticed that in some of the East Coast mountains that's right. I also climbed the mountain in New Hampshire a couple of times when I was in Focus.
Mount Washington?
Yeah.
Could be wrong.
It was either mountain. No, you're right about the name. I just don't remember if it was that mountain or if it was another one like in that area. But it probably was Mount Washington, honestly. But
I think Mount Washington set the record for this wind speed on land a couple years ago. I'm gonna be Google searching a lot of facts.
That's possible. I mean, it was really fun because we did this really cool retreat the 2 years that I was up in Boston as a Focus missionary. We did like a men's retreat with like the MIT, Boston University, and Harvard male missionaries and like a group of male students from each campus. And we went to this cabin in New Hampshire for a weekend. Nice. And literally this is such a it's this big like 20 like we had like 20 to 25 guys all sleeping upstairs on the floor of this cabin. And then the downstairs was like super primitive, just like a fireplace and a kitchen and like a water pump thing that pumped up water from a well that smelled like sulfur. And so it was disgusting smelling. And the only bathroom is an outhouse like 50 feet out from where the cabin is.
Sounds like music.
And it was like freezing cold. At least one of the times when we went, it snowed. And so and the funny thing is none of us were prepared for it. But on Saturday, we all went for different like extreme, like different levels of hikes. And it snowed the one year. And so we were all like tromping through snow, like literally like a foot or more of snow on these hikes without like snow shoes or anything like that. Like you like step and your like ankle would like your leg up to your knee would like sink into the snow and you'd have to take the next step and just keep going. So
that sounds like heaven to me.
Yeah, honestly. It was so fun. And we had a priest who came with us. And so like we had like mass and adoration on Saturday night too. But
nice.
But he went on the hikes too. He was a cool guy. But,
bring a priest with you on these cool trips. They make it 10 times better.
Yeah, it was a very like JP2 type thing. Like he like actually went on the hikes with us and everything. I mean, we didn't celebrate mass outside, but we celebrated in the like
snow altar.
Camp. Yeah,
when I was studying in Denver at the Augustine Institute, there was this priest, Father Riley, who was clearly an Irish descendant because even though his family had been here for quite some time, when he would say Riley, you could like hear just a little bit of like, oh, okay, there's a little bit of an Irish accent. I don't think, I think it's like just a very watered down, but only with one word, which is his last name, and an enunciation, so it would make sense that it would maintain the Irish tone. But we were incoming students at the Augustine Institute, and we went on this mountain retreat.
Mm-hmm.
And there was this hike, and Father Riley just like takes off at the beginning. And by the time we get to the destination of the hike, he has a rock altar built.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
Dang, that's awesome.
Yeah,
that's
wild.
really cool.
So I checked, Mount Washington Observatory, 89 years ago today, Mount Washington Observatory in its second year of existence recorded a world record wind speed of 231 miles per hour, a record that would stand for over 60 years. Okay, well, what's the wind?
Wow.
That was broken recently, though.
Dang.
What's the current wind speed record on land, obviously. Because wind is faster the higher you get, right?
What do you mean? Like the higher up you get?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know, but I would assume so. That seems logical to me.
I thought it was highest wind speed.
I am not a
253 miles per hour, Barrow Island, Australia.
Wow.
That's the highest.
That's
maybe Mount Washington set its own record a couple years ago.
That's possible, yeah.
But okay, so yeah, you've been on a real mountain. Have you have you ever been west of the Mississippi?
Well, I mean, I was born in California.
Yes, you were. Yeah, you were.
And then
But for
I
like-
also visited briefly Southern California a few years ago
What were you
for
doing?
like a week.
What were you doing in SoCal?
My brother and I just went to go visit, like, just kind of like I think I'd wanted to go to California, like to visit my cousins to meet my cousins actually. 'Cause I hadn't seen them since I was like 5, so I didn't actually like know them really.
Nice.
So my brother and I just went out to like the Southern California area and like.
Were you in San Diego, LA?
No, we were in the LA area. Yeah.
Okay, nice.
We went to like the Santa Monica Pier and like Universal and went to see my cousins and stuff like that.
Dude,
So
I love the California vibe so much. And that's about it.
yeah, I mean, if by the California vibe you mean like the more chill thing, sort
just
of,
like
then
there's
yeah,
good Mexican food everywhere. There's
Oh,
In
yeah,
and Out.
that's
There's
true,
hikes
too,
right
yeah.
there. The beach is right there too.
I had heard a lot of things about In-N-Out. I was actually pretty like surprised I actually liked In-N-Out a lot. Like,
well,
because it's so simple, but I appreciate that it's just like 6 things on the menu and that's it. Like
And
they've
it's
just
very
stuck to that
affordable.
for a long time. Yeah, that's true.
even
too.
in today's economy, like when I went to California a year ago when my cousin Justin died,
Oh yeah.
we went and got like a bunch of In-N-Out burgers for like my family. I think we got like 30 burgers. And so we're buying these burgers and the guy is selling them to us. And I'm like, man, these are still pretty affordable. He's like, yeah, Five Guys can't say that. Can't like he started smack talking about it. It was so funny. Also, what was crazy is when I went to that In-N-Out, the thing was slammed.
Oh
Like,
yeah,
it was,
of course.
It was a Saturday night. It was actually Holy Saturday, but it was.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, it was slammed. Okay, and everyone working in the back was super happy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you don't see that at fast food restaurants. You go to McDonald's on a Friday night and people are freaking out or just taking it easy and not working fast, and it's taking time to get your order, and then your order's missing a few things. At In-N-Out, they're perfectly fine spending a lot of money on their employees.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's not abnormal for a manager at an In-N-Out to make $125,000. Yeah, you can. I mean, it's in
Have
California.
you looked this up? That's insane.
Yeah,
Wow.
I mean, I've seen like people on.
Although,
Reddit,
yeah, I guess
but
to
you
your
gotta-
point, California
the cost-
income is the
125
cost
kink.
of living is
Yeah,
that's like equivalent to like 80 grand here probably or something.
yeah,
or
which
whatever.
is still respectable.
I mean, that's still
relatively speaking. But yeah, they take care of their employees really well. And if you look underneath their soda cups, there's like John 3:16 underneath the bottom rim.
Oh, really? I
Yeah.
didn't think I knew In-N-Out was In-N-Out.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, no, they're In-N-Out's a great company.
Nice.
But
no, the place that well, actually, wait a minute. Okay, this is not true. I've been to Denver now that I think about it. I went to Denver for a focus thing once.
Okay. Yeah.
But we didn't really like get to explore much. We were just actually no. I've been to Denver twice because I also visited friends there once 2 years ago. But both times we didn't go like up to the mountains. Like we just like I mean obviously I guess Denver is like what sort of in the mountains, right? But like
It's right at the base of them.
yeah, exactly. But
yeah.
we didn't like go up into the mountains. So that's like that's one thing that I saw them from a distance, but I would love to like go into the Rockies sometime or into like some of the mountains out there.
So if you've been on top of Mount Mitchell is 6,000. What was it? Mount Mitchell
6,680 something, I think you said.
elevation 6,684.
Yeah. Feet.
84 feet. Yes. Yeah. All right. So you've been on top of a mountain. Yeah. Next time you go to Denver, just so the highest I've been is, I think, around 13,000 feet.
Mm-hmm.
In Denver, Colorado, Mount Evans, but you can drive right up to that.
I mean, you can do that with Mount Mitchell too.
Right. Yeah. No. So I will never claim that I've climbed Mount Evans. Like because I haven't.
Sure.
And I haven't earned the. I have not earned the summiting of Mount Evans, even though I did climb the last like 500 feet because you park and there's this little like trip up to it and you're right there. But I have climbed Mount Pilchuck in Washington So Mount Pilchuck was a mountain that I grew up at the base of in Granite Falls, Washington.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And the altitude is 5,344 feet. And I've actually camped up there like twice.
Did you climb that from the base roughly?
Not from the base. No, you drive.
Do you know about how high you are when you start? I'm just curious.
No, yeah, I can look up all trails. So it is a 5.2 mile loop, the mountain. And in that so it's a 5.2 miles. Wait, is that loop or? Yeah, I'm assuming. So it's probably like 2.6 miles up, but you gain 2,000 feet in elevation in just 2 miles. So you're doing it 1,000
That's
feet.
a lot of like up, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like that's a lot of hard up. I mean, because you're not doing that gradually.
Yeah, All Trails does label it as hard. It's not a technical climb, and there's not a whole lot of even scrambling that happens. There is scrambling opportunities because there are massive rock fields along the trail that you can divert from the path if you want to, which I've done before, and it's an absolute blast. But that's a mountain that I've climbed, definitely. But this summer,
Yeah, where is it you're climbing, right?
where is it I'm climbing? I am climbing Mount St. Helens.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, which I was looking stuff up.
that's the one that my mom always used to talk about.
Yeah, so Mount St. Helens had a massive eruption.
Doesn't that? Yeah, that's a volcanic mountain, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it had a massive eruption in 1980.
Yeah. Okay.
And just to get an idea of how, so here's the thing. Mount St. Helens is a part of the Ring of Fire, which are these mountains that form a ring that go from the west coast of the United States all the way. I'm pretty sure Mount Fuji is in the Ring of Fire.
Wait, what? Isn't that like across the
Yep.
Pacific?
Mauna Kea, I'm pretty sure, is in the Ring of Fire. It's a massive ring.
Am I
It's a
what?
Mount
Like across
Fuji.
the Pacific Ocean?
Yeah, because it's a
Oh my
circle.
goodness.
So it goes up the west coast. Denali up in Alaska is
Okay.
is the edge of it. I think there's a mountain in Russia on the coast that's a part of the Ring of Fire.
Okay.
Then it
And
goes
then
down
it
to
comes
Japan,
back down.
Mauna
Oh,
Kea,
okay.
and then back up the
Huh.
coast of California.
That's wild. Wow.
Ring
I
of
didn't know that was a thing.
Fire. Mount Fuji, Ring of Fire. Let's see.
Hmm.
Mount Fuji is located on the Pacific Ring of Fire. Yes. Okay. Yeah.
But why is it? Is it just called the Ring of Fire because there's a bunch of volcanic mountains around there, or do they claim that
Yes.
they're like connected somehow, sort of?
I think they're a part of the same plate or fault. Or
I guess that would make
Not
sense,
fault
right?
line,
Because
but-
like, for as huge as the world is, the way like Earth and stuff works, I could see that kind of making sense. That they're probably all part of like an ancient like kind of conglomeration of volcanic mountains that like erupted and like made all these.
Well, actually, the Ring of Fire
places,
goes
right?
all the way down to South America, and
Oh.
then it connects to New Zealand as
Wait,
well.
where does it go into like Patagonia, like into those mountains?
It doesn't go to Patagonia, actually. I think
Huh,
Patagonia
okay.
might be like just the results. Like it's like mountains don't abruptly stop. You know what I mean? So I don't think Patagonia is maybe they're not volcanic structures, but I think they're kind of like the slow incline from those volcanoes. Like you know how Mount Everest is like the tallest peak in the world.
Yeah,
and all the
but
other
there's
mountains
a
are-
bajillion other Himalayan mountains that are really tall, as we know,
Right,
as
right,
we're
but
gonna
they're
get
all-
into
but
in
like-
a second. But
Mount Everest is like the high point.
Yeah.
Of that, and then everything kind of like goes down from there. You know, so I guess that's,
Interesting.
I'm wondering if that's why Patagonia.
that was the
is
other
not-
thing. Actually, I was in Chile a few years ago for a mission trip, and a lot of the college students from Chile that we were hanging out with were talking about how like some of them wanted to do like I forget now what they called it. There's a name for it, but where they go and like hike like this certain like couple mountains in Patagonia, and like do a whole like circle of the mountains. It sounds really fun.
Yeah, no, that would be fun. I hear it's intense though. I've
Oh
watched-
yeah,
I've-
it's very intense. from the
it's
sound
pretty
of it.
technical too. It's pretty technical climbing. I watched a few documentaries on it where there's actually this really good documentary. It's called The Alpinist on Netflix.
Huh. Okay.
So everyone knows who Alex Honnold is. So Alex Honnold climbs not all
I
the
was
time.
gonna say maybe not everyone, but yeah, he's a climber.
Yeah, he's a climber. He's not exactly the world's best climber when it comes to overall like challenge. Well, when it comes to the grades of climbing, there are climbers who are stronger than him and who can do routes that he can't do. But the thing about Alex is there are times where he'll climb without a rope. And
Yeah, although if you watch the documentary on him, like it is interesting because I'd say the biggest thing with Alex Honnold is his like kind of insane personality to be willing to just like do the crazy free climbs. But when you think about it, like most of what he does with those free climbs is just literally practices the climb like a bajillion times with a rope,
Well, he
and
can
then
tell
does it
you
without a rope.
Yeah, he
like,
can tell you every move on the route.
well, that's what I'm saying. Like, so like when you think about it in one sense, that's not really like there's a degree of skill that's involved there, but most of that is just getting his body to memorize what he needs to do, and then
also the
doing
mental
it.
fortitude
And so,
of like
yeah,
I'm
sure.
I'm 2,000 feet in the
I'm
sky.
not trying to
and
like. I'm not saying I want to go do that, but I guess I'm saying that I think you could argue that like somebody climbing like Mount Everest or even like Patagonia mountains or like some of these like bigger mountains that require more different things are almost like more impressive to me than like an Alex Honnold.
Well, and Alex fully admits that. So in the documentary The Alpinist, it follows this man, Jean-Marc Leclerc. He's a 23-year-old from Samish, Vancouver, which is just above where I grew up, actually.
Vancouver, Canada?
Yeah,
or
in
Vancouver?
Canada.
Okay.
Yeah. I grew up around an area known as Lake Sammamish, but he's from a place called Samish, which is so they just shortened, but clearly connected. There's a bunch of Native American names in the state of Washington and that part of Canada. So Jean-Marc Leclerc is... Yeah, it's a pretty cool French name.
Yeah.
He is a climber, but he's also an ice climber with an axe.
Oh, yeah.
And he's a full-on alpinist. So he does free solo like Alex, but there's a point in the documentary where they're interviewing Alex, and Alex is like, what I'm doing is a lot safer than Jean-Marc Leclerc, like what he does. And Alex explains, like, because I'm climbing rock. Like, rock can fall, you know what I mean? But it's a pretty sturdy substance to grab onto. There are videos of Jean-Marc Leclerc where he's ice climbing without a rope. Like, he's 600 feet, 1,000 feet in the air, and he's taking an axe and he's hammering it into the ice.
Yep.
And ice falls all the time, but he's climbing it without a rope, and it's insane. But he did all the what he would do that's really impressive is all these solo excursions in the mountains, and he did a solo excursion on Patagonia all by himself without any assistance. And so he kind of had like this natural appreciation for the mountains of going out into the unknown and conquering the adventure without previous knowledge of what route to take.
Exactly.
Yeah.
See that? I love that. Yeah.
It's a really good documentary, so I would suggest you check that out.
Wait, what's it? You said it's called The Alpinist?
The Alpinist. It's on Netflix.
So wait, this is a really dumb question that I'm realizing I don't know why I don't know the answer to, but where are the Alpine Mountains? Isn't that a thing? There are Alpine Mountains, right?
Alpine Mountains.
Right? Or what
Like
is
a
an
mountain
Alpine?
range. Alpine. Let's look up.
Because I like have heard that term my whole life, and I vaguely had a concept in my head, and now I'm realizing that I don't know if I actually know what like an alpine is per se.
So alpine is an adjective relating to high mountains. A plant native to mountain districts, often suitable for growing in rock. Oh, there's a plant called
there's
alpine.
a plant called alpine. Maybe that's more what I'm thinking.
It's also a North American butterfly, which has brownish black wings.
Of course.
So it's just alpine just means of or relating to mountains. And especially the Alps. So the alpine is related to the Alps
Wait a minute. I wonder if that's just a mashing together of two words, because pine, I bet, has something to do with like. All right.
Stop. Just go and stop.
It has something to do with like. No, seriously. Like in like Latin and like languages like that, I'm pretty sure I could look it up, and I think that has something to do with like the word pine, like as far as like trees and stuff like that on a mountain, and then al is probably just like 2 or 4.
The modern English word pine derives from the Latin word pinus, which some have traced to the Indo-European base pit resin. Okay. Source of English pituitary gland. What? Okay. Pine, coniferous tree of the genus Pinus. Old English pin in compounds. From Old French pin and direct from Latin pinus, pine, tree, for tree, which is perhaps
that's what I thought. I think pinus in
pi,
Latin was like tree.
Pinu from root pa, which means to be fat or swell.
Yeah, but I think the Latin root is tree basically. Like I think a pinus is like a type of tree in Latin, sort of.
Yeah. No,
I think that's what I'm saying, is that I bet that's where alpine comes from. Probably it's
definitely.
just like al to mean like something along the lines of 2 or 4 or something, like the trees or whatever. Anyway,
so the alpine, would you consider the Appalachian Mountains alpine mountains? I would agree that at one point they were, because apparently.
What are we classifying as an alpine mountain?
Well,
like what are you saying it needs to be?
In my mind right now, it's entirely subjective. I've not come up with the criteria.
Well, in that case, then sure, that sounds good to me. I mean, I've been in the Appalachian Mountains a little bit.
Okay.
What?
Cool.
You sound like you don't like the Appalachian Mountains.
I appreciate them for their historical significance. Once I've seen, like, I've been to Shenandoah, and once I've seen one view from Shenandoah, I've seen every view from Shenandoah.
I mean, yes, Rhys, they're not West Coast mountains, obviously.
Dude.
They're like little hills compared to the West Coast. But
Man.
you know what's fascinating? I forget who told me this, but I think maybe it was one of the guys. I think it was when I was in seminary that one of the guys' brothers or something had worked for like a geological thing or something, and like supposedly they believe, like, you know, scientists or whatever nowadays believe that the Appalachian Mountains are like the what's the word? Like the valleys sort of what used to be massively taller mountains next to them that like over time somehow like collapsed or whatever essentially.
Oh,
and
now
like
the rubble,
now the
like,
Appalachian Mountains are actually like what used to be the lowest points are actually the highest points now in the area.
Because of all the...
Because like however that works, like
erosion.
geologically or whatever, that like there used to be these like massive mountains that were next to the Appalachian Mountains that were like a lot bigger. So the Appalachian Mountains were essentially like the valleys between them sort of. And now the Appalachian Mountains are the big mountains, quote unquote, in the area with all these like tiny valleys or whatever below them.
Well, I do know... Yeah, I've heard the theory. I've heard the argument that seems to be agreed upon by most archaeologists that the Appalachian Mountains were as tall as the Rockies at one point. But what were the Appalachian Mountains? I've never heard the theory that you presented, which sounds plausible, that there used to be these taller mountains, and as they eroded over time, they gathered in the valley, and what gathered in the valley is the modern-day Appalachian Mountains. But I've been hiking in the Frederick area, and I think like Castle Rock might be the name of one of the hikes. And if you go to kind of like this info board at the top of the hike, it shows how tall where you're standing used to be. And it's like 16,000 or 10,000 feet higher than where you are. It's like, this is how tall it used to be, but over millions of years, hundreds of thousands of years, erosion took over.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, the Appalachian Mountains, they have a charm to them. Don't not get me wrong. And I'm happy to go to Shenandoah again. I really want to check out Shenandoah during the fall when the leaves are changing, because I hear that's really pretty.
Yeah.
But growing up out west, it leaves something to be desired when I go to the Appalachian Mountains.
I can't imagine going from like those mountains out west to the mountains, the quote unquote mountains out in the east. Like most people I've met who grew up in like places like Washington or Colorado or places like that, and then come to the east and see the east like mountains, quote unquote, they're like, yeah, you have little hills over here. Like, like it's yeah.
There's definitely little hills out here.
It is interesting about the erosion though too, because I've hiked a good portion of. Well, I think I've hiked pretty much all of the Maryland section of the AT, the Appalachian Trail.
Really? Okay.
And my father Luke actually, he and I would go on like backpacking trips. We haven't done one in a while, but
nice.
The one thing though is like it fits to me with the whole crumbling thing that we're talking about in erosion too, because those mountains are rocky as crap, like in a like not fun kind of way, like a not like I don't know, like I feel like there's and I don't know, now I'm curious now that I think about it of like what your experience with the like west like Washington mountains and stuff has been, but like I feel like I've seen mountains, even like the ones in the Smokies to me that I was on, were not as rocky as the Appalachian Trail like area. Like there was a lot of just like rocks, like not
rubble
like
everywhere.
Yeah, like rubble kind of rocks, not like big huge stones, but like just a lot of little rocks, as though it's been like, you know, crumbling for a long time or something.
Well, no, yeah, I would agree with you, because there were a few hikes I've done in Shenandoah where they're all scrambling, and there are places where you can climb, but it looks like it's just rocks put together by a toddler. Like nothing. Nothing. There's no. I don't think I've ever looked at a spot in Shenandoah where it looks like one whole structure.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean.
I mean, there are big boulders, there are big pieces of rock, but it seems like it's clearly old rock, you know, that's been broken down and broken apart over hundreds of thousands, millions of years. And even if you go hiking around here, like around the Gunpowder, there are boulders all over the place. Like there's the Boulder Garden right next to St. Mark's in Falston, which I've gone climbing before. And you look at these big rocks and you're like, how did this big rock get here? Like if you
That's
go to
an interesting
if you go to
point.
Rock State Park, like
Yeah, I was just in Rock State
Well,
Park
yeah.
recently. Actually, we just went hiking there.
did you do it with a young adult group?
No, I just Shannon and I went.
Oh, okay, because there's a young adult group that did it like 3
The
days ago.
Bishop Parker or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, but if you do one of the routes up to the King and Queen seat at Rock State Park,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to pass this weird rock that's just sitting on top of another rock. Let's say take a trapezoid, okay, put it upside down on the top part of the trapezoid, but put it upside down. Well, no, it's still a trapezoid. What's up?
Yeah, because isn't a trapezoid? Yeah.
It can be any direction, but a
Yeah.
trapezoid so we have the base of the trapezoid, okay, and then you have the top of the trapezoid, which is, let's just say that's the shorter part of the trapezoid, all right?
Yeah.
Imagine that the shorter part of the trapezoid, the shorter part of the length is actually the base.
Yeah.
And there's a rock shaped like that, and it's just sitting on top of another rock. And it looks like it could tip over, like very
At any
easily.
second. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you look at that structure and you think to yourself,
How did this?
yeah. I guess a good way to imagine a shoe and you took it upside down and you rested it.
Yeah.
You put the shoe on the ground upside down. That's what the rock looks like.
I mean, for that matter, I've always found about like all those kind of nature things like fascinating, like how rock structures come about. Like even like the King and Queen seat area that I think you've been climbing with me there,
Yeah.
like you and Dag and I, and like that weird, like the area that we climb there on that edge part. There's an edge part at King and Queen seat that kind of juts out, and it's like separate from everything around it, basically.
Yeah.
And so it's like the rocks behind it must have somehow over time like eroded away or fallen. Like something happened.
it's just a mess
because,
down
like,
there,
It's just
yeah.
like that whole area is this weird. There's like a lot of weird formations of like big stones and rocks that are just in places where you're like, how did this get here and stay here? Like it wasn't like it just fell down and like rolled down a mountain or something and stayed there, because it's like actually clearly like it's weird.
And you still see signs of that out west. Like I said, I grew up in a mountain town, and you would just go up Mount Loop Highway in Granite Falls, and you would be 30 minutes away from some of the best hikes out west. So there are 3 main hikes that a lot of people in my area. Well, not 3 main hikes, but there are a handful of main hikes that people did in the area I grew up in.
Mhm.
One of them was climbing Mount Pilchuck.
Okay.
Another was Lake 22. Another was Heather Lake, which was a climb on Mount Pilchuck, but it wasn't a summit climb. It was just you were going to this specific alpine lake. And then there's also the ice caves. Now, at the ice caves and at Lake 22 and Heather Lake, there's rocks everywhere because the alpine lakes form in like these bowls, okay? And so you're going to get a debris field at the other side of the lake that's up against the mountain.
Mm-hmm.
And so that place is very prone to avalanches and rock slides. So there was this one time, my wife and I think we had only been married a year. We hadn't had any kids yet. And we're visiting in Washington for over Christmas. And we decided to do the ice caves hike. So the ice caves, there's no lake, but these ice caves, the way they form is water and snow. Well, snow forms on the edge of the mountain, okay, throughout the winter.
Mm-hmm.
And the mountain provides a lot of shade. I believe this is how this works. It provides a lot of shade for the snow at the base of the mountain.
Mm-hmm.
So the snow is less likely to melt, even during the summer months, because you're still relatively high at this point, like elevation-wise. And being at that height with all that shade, the snow is able to last throughout the year. So you have these semi-permanent ice caves, and people have gone into them, and then it's really stupid to do that because they collapse on the inside. People have died.
Man,
Like,
that sounds so fun though. To go not to get crushed, but to go
Ridiculous.
inside one.
Dying
Like I
by
could totally understand the desire to go inside one,
right. No, yeah,
because it sounds like it'd be really fun.
I feel it
It
too.
also sounds like it probably, from what you just described, it'd probably be dangerous, but it sounds fun.
Yeah, it does sound like a good time. But one time when my wife and I were back in Seattle over Christmas, we decided, and this was like during the winter, and it's dumping snow up Mount Loop, and we decided, let's go hike to the ice caves. But we had to be careful because avalanches are very prone, because the mountain that the ice caves form at the base of it's a whole face. It's a whole wall. It's not like a triangle mountain. It's like a straight up and down building.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, not exact,
Wow,
but
that's
But if you
like,
wanted
it's
to go
very
up it,
steep, is your point?
yeah, if you wanted to go up it, you're gonna have to climb
Dang.
with rope.
Yikes.
So the snow, it was dumping snow, and it was super loose, wet snow, and a lot of it wasn't freezing. So we're hiking, we're going up there. We're hearing like rumbling as we're heading up like to the ice caves. And then we see a sign that says like, hey, you're in an avalanche field. Just like be careful. So we're like walking a little closer. And we're like, okay, this is as close as we're going to get. Like I could see the mountain. I could see the ice caves. There's no way we were going to go up right to them like we would during the summer. Okay.
Yeah.
So we stay back. And then we turn around. And this massive, like almost like an earthquake happens. Like this massive shaking takes place. And we turn around and just like this insane avalanche is taking place. The mountain is called Big Four, if anyone wants to look it up. It's pretty wild looking. But it was like one of the coolest things ever. This insane avalanche.
It was like far enough away that you weren't.
Oh yeah, we were
like
safe.
You could see it, but it was wow. That sounds awesome.
Yeah, it was pretty sick.
Oh my gosh.
But the point I'm trying to make is the Cascades do not seem to be as old as the Appalachian Mountains.
Yeah, I wonder that too.
But they're in that. But there are areas where there's rock and debris everywhere because erosion is taking place. Mm-hmm. So even when there's no snow, there are people who have been crushed by rocks at Big Four ice caves or have been crushed by rocks. I think a kid when I was in middle school got killed by a falling rock at Lake 22 because there's this boulder field that I've climbed. I've climbed to the boulder field before. There's all these small waterfalls in it because water's coming down from the mountain. And it's a total blast. But there are boulders coming down, and if you're not paying attention, it's going to knock. And it's falling from a high point, so it's going to pick up a lot of speed. And by the time it gets to you, it's a train, you know. One good rock to the face.
Yeah, like I mean, even if it's a small rock, if it's got enough distance coming down,
take a rock the size of your fist,
smash you in the head.
It's gonna kill you.
Yeah.
But so yeah, they're not as old out there, but there is that rocky nature, and also I think because of the glacier presence, or the not necessarily glacier presence, but recent glacier presence. And by recent, I mean thousands of years. But there's rocks that are split. Like massive rocks that are split because glaciers are known to do that. Like there's small cracks and then the water gets in and then it freezes, and when water freezes it expands.
Yeah. That's fascinating.
Causes the rock to break. Yeah.
That sounds cool. I would love to like some of these places like Colorado and Washington and stuff. I would love to go on hikes in those places.
Yeah, I love Colorado. I lived there for 3 years. I wouldn't mind moving back there if it wasn't so bloody expensive. But I think the most beautiful mountains I've been to are in Washington State, I think.
And
maybe
you're also from Washington State, so I would expect there's a little bit of bias there.
You could say that. But the reason why I don't know. Oh, you're good. I'm trying to figure out, like, put my finger on why I find the Washington Mountains more appealing. I mean, Rocky Mountain National Park is gorgeous. Like, it is close. Like, I could see myself coming around to an argument in which the mountains in the Rocky Mountain National Park are more beautiful. But here's what Washington State has over the Rockies: Mount Rainier and other volcanoes. Because
I've heard good things about Mount Rainier.
So the thing about the mountains in Colorado is you're at 5,000 feet altitude already, because it's this massive plateau in the heart of the United States. So when you see a 14,000 foot mountain in the Rockies, it looks impressive. Don't get me wrong. Like Pikes Peak, looks really impressive.
The famous one that everyone talks about.
They think it's like America's mountain for some reason in Colorado Springs. It's gorgeous. Don't get me wrong, but you're already 5,000 feet in the sky, so its prominence, whilst there's a lot of prominence to Pikes Peak, it's not as in your face. Mount Rainier, it's 14,000 feet. It's not taller than some of these Rocky Mountains, but you're at sea level. Like Seattle is pretty much an island, and you're at sea level, and you turn to your left on a bright sunny day, and you see this volcano just looming over the entire city. And so
that's pretty cool.
So its prominence is a lot more obvious than the Rocky Mountains. I think that's one argument I would make for the Cascade Mountains over the Rocky Mountains. But the Rocky Mountains definitely.
Has Mount Rainier erupted in any recent?
No,
like as in the last couple hundred years or whatever.
I don't think the last couple hundred years. I've looked up its geological record.
Because I know it's actually funny because my grandparents on my mom's side lived in Washington State still back when Mount St. Helen went off, and I think my mom knew some other people because I remember her talking about obviously I wasn't alive in 1980, but I remember hearing about how they talked about how there were people who had ash from the eruption in their backyards and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, when I remember my parents talking about, I don't think my dad was not in Seattle yet. I think he was still living in California. but my mom talks about it, I believe, and family members talk about it. It's like this massive explosion that people heard all the way in Spokane, Washington, which is basically Idaho. And Mount St. Helens is the west side of Washington, and it's closer to Oregon. So it made a loud noise, and then people said it seemed like it started snowing, but it wasn't snow. It was actually
Yeah, it was ash.
So Mount Rainier is a stratovolcano in the Cascade volcanic arc that consists of lava flows, debris flows, and proclastic ejecta and flows. Its early volcanic deposits are estimated at more than 840,000 years ago, or
Good
years
gracious.
old, and are part of the Lily Formation, which I don't know what that is.
Who knows what that's supposed to be?
The early deposited formed a proto-Rainier, or an ancestral cone prior to the present day. The present cone is more than 500,000 years old. I'm trying to find history. Modern activity. The most recent recorded volcanic activity was between 1820 and 1854.
Wow.
But many eyewitnesses reported eruptive activity in 58, 70, 79, 82, and 1894. Additionally, the Smithsonian Institution Volcanism Project records the last full eruption to be like 1450. So that's like 50 years before, it's 42 years before Columbus made his way to this hemisphere.
1450, yeah.
That's insane. Wow. Okay. I've looked up this stuff before, but I didn't realize it was this recent.
Yeah, things like that are just wild to me to like think about the way volcanoes and mountains are formed and all the different, it's wild.
Yeah, it's pretty nuts. And the thing is about Rainier, as I believe it's due for an eruption.
Well, that's what I was just thinking. Like just on a logic level, it seems like if the last activity was like the 1800s, 200 years ago, basically from the sound of it, or 150 to 200 years ago, and the last like big eruption was 500 years ago, like it definitely seems like there's a possibility that something could happen at some point in the next, I don't know, 100, 200 years.
Yeah, fortunately, we would get a heads up with some earthquakes. Usually that's helpful. Sometimes, I mean, a volcano could just erupt one day, but usually you get some seismic activity beforehand. That's what happened with St. Helens. Like, everyone knew St. Helens was going to erupt when it happened in 1980, but I don't think they knew exactly when it was going to happen otherwise. But people were, like, kind of getting away from the area. They're like, hey, don't go to St. Helens.
Well, I don't know how you would. I mean, even good scientists nowadays, I feel like it'd be difficult for. I mean, obviously, I'm not a scientist. I don't know what their like technology is that they have now, but it seems to me logically that it'd be pretty difficult to like predict with like accuracy, even like the accuracy of weather, which is still not all that accurate. But like, but even the prediction of like, oh, it'll be this day that it'll erupt, like. It seems like it'd be really difficult to know actually like that precisely. Like I could see them being like, oh, it's probably going to erupt soon based on, seismic activity and stuff like that's happened. But yeah, to that point of like people not knowing exactly when, it seems like it'd be really difficult to know like relatively precisely when it would happen. But
yeah, I think the variables when it comes to an eruption are just too many. So when I was looking at videos on eruption of St. Helens, I think I'm wondering what an eruption is defined as. Because there are some eruptions where lava is just flowing. Definition.
Well, I was actually thinking about that too, because the St. Helens thing wasn't that big of an eruption, right? I mean, that's
it was actually no, it was pretty massive.
Oh, was it?
So so what happened with St. Helens? It was so big that St. Helens lost over 1,000 feet in elevation.
Wait, what?
Yeah. Watch a video. So there's this guy who was 10 miles away, and he was at the right angle where he wasn't exactly in the path of St. Helens eruption, where he took pictures of the eruption as it was happening. And so he's able to, you ever do like where you get a flip book and you paint pictures on every page? And
Yeah.
you flip the book
I mean, I
over,
never did it, but I've seen them. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. I mean, that's basically how old TV worked,
Yeah, no, it is.
It's just a bunch of pictures put together.
Particularly
really
old
fast.
animation, too. That's how it worked, but yeah.
Yeah. And so he took pictures, and you're able to see what the eruption looked like. There's just, imagine a mountain that's close to 10,000 feet. It was never at 10,000 feet. I think it was like 9,700 something feet, St. Helens. And imagine like a third of it just sliding away. So here's the thing, how Mount St. Helens erupted.
Holy frick.
So there's water in the ground everywhere. Water is not just in the ocean. It's not just in lakes. It's not just in rivers. Like underneath the surface, there is water. So what causes really dangerous eruptions is when the lava, the magma. I'm not sure what the difference between lava and magma is. I think one is when it's encountered air, like the surface, but whatever.
That's probably lava then, right?
Yeah, I have no idea. Magma. So when magma is pushing and it encounters a pocket of water, what happens when water encounters intense heat?
Steam.
It steams, okay? And that creates pressure, okay? And if that pressure builds enough, you get an explosion. If the pressure's like, you ever take a water bottle and twist it in half, where you tie it, it's almost like a knot, and you twist the bottle cap off.
No, but I can picture this. This sounds interesting.
Yeah, so if you're twisting the water bottle, like you take a water bottle and you go to the center point and you're just twisting it, like you're taking the top and you're going one direction, and the bottom you're going the opposite direction.
Yeah.
You just keep twisting. The pressure builds up inside, and you can actually slowly undo the cap, and it pops off, kind of like a champagne bottle, you know. If people shake champagne, okay, and the carbonation builds up pressure, eventually the cork.
Well, that's. I mean, I even think of like this whole conversation about volcanoes reminds me of like if you ever did. I'm pretty sure we did when I was a kid at some point. Those like the like little science experiment things where you'd make your own little volcano. Like,
I think those are more of a chemical reaction.
Well, no, of course it's a chemical reaction, but like.
But I'm not sure they're pressure based.
Well, no, it's probably not pressure based, but that helps lame people like me understand like that whole concept a little bit more because when you think about it, I think we used like baking soda or baking powder or something and like something else to make it kind of like bubble sort of.
Yeah.
But but on a really rudimentary level, that is the same concept insofar that the pressure that you're talking about under the ground that happens creates like this intense amount of air bubbly pressure from the like magma, lava, whatever it's called, and then eventually it like bursts.
Yeah, so imagine that experiment,
like,
but there's nowhere for it to go for a little bit.
Yeah, exactly.
Eventually the pressure builds so much. So the crazy thing about St. Helens is there was like a bolt, like imagine a tumor that becomes obvious and it grows really fast and you begin to see it on the person like, oh yeah, like that tumor's moving pretty quickly. Hopefully we can treat that. But Mount St. Helens had like a tumor, and over like a few years, you could see it bulging, like the side of the mountain bulging like really fast. Because all mountains are growing. I mean, there's also erosion taking place.
Did you just say mountains are growing?
Yeah, because of the way tectonic plates work, elevation, like mountains actually move up slightly. Like because of the way, yeah. So I believe.
That's wild. I never knew that. Holy crap.
Everest has grown slightly.
Wait, so what, huh?
Everest.
Oh my gosh,
growth.
I am so.
I mean, it's very slow.
I mean, I'm sure it is, but that's fascinating. I did not realize that.
So it's the tallest in the world and still growing by about 4 millimeters a year. But many years from now, the record books will have to be updated to show that Everest is no longer the most gargantuan peak. There might be another mountain that's growing at a faster rate. So I think that people have done some studies, and Mount Everest is about as tall as a mountain can get on Earth because of the pressure of the atmosphere on Earth. Eventually it gets too high where it just degrades.
Eventually it gets so high that you get to the top of it, you can just jump off and go into space.
No, not that. Not that. It's just
I'm kidding.
Okay.
No, I was being silly.
But just like it becomes. I think it's the strength of gravity. Yeah, because that wouldn't make sense because there's lower air pressure, isn't there? There's lower air pressure the higher you get because there's less air.
You mean like it's thinner? Yeah.
Yeah, it's thinner.
It's thinner. Yeah.
And the air's thinner. I don't know. I need to check my physics and stuff. But
I think it would be because it just
gravity.
Can't, like,
well, I think no.
Well, no,
because the gravity diminishes actually.
Isn't it that the air pressure would make it so that something can't like hold up that high?
I'm not so sure.
Because I think that's the same principle behind why we can't build absurdly high skyscrapers. Like the highest skyscrapers in the world is like that building in Dubai that's like 100-something stories high, and that thing's like barely able to stand because of how high it is. Like I think there's some principle about the way like just natural things can't like the air pressure thing. I think somehow makes it harder for things to exist that high.
So air pressure is lower. So we were right about that.
Well, yeah, I mean,
air pressure is greater the lower you are.
Yeah.
Okay. And I understand, like, yeah, there's less to hold it together. What prevents mountains from being taller than Everest? I'm not sure if I'm Googling the right question.
Yeah, I don't know if that's actually gonna.
A mountain could potentially grow quite a bit taller than Everest, but it would face challenges from gravity and erosion. Okay, Earth's
So it is
gravitational
gravity
pull
then.
causes mountains. Okay, so it is gravity. Yeah, I mean gravity is diminished a little
Man,
bit.
darn
but,
gravity, man,
yeah.
always pulling us back to the earth.
Yeah,
Just kidding.
it's weighing us down. But
Um,
so.
But yeah, so you were talking about Mount St. Helen growing this huge bulge
So
and
it's
then
growing up
blowing
this
up.
huge bulge, and the magma came into contact with the water, and the water starts creating all this steam, this mist, or this, it starts boiling basically, which creates massive amounts of pressure. And
I mean, it's the same
rock-
principle in that sense. If you think about a pan that's boiling and the lid starts like bouncing off, sort
Exactly,
of,
a tea
because
kettle, but there's
eventually
no hole.
it gets like so heavy that it pushes the thing on top of it off.
Exactly. Just imagine, though, it's the entire side of a nearly 10,000 foot mountain. So when St. Helens erupted, there were two possible ways it could have erupted. It could erupt like a traditional, like just straight up, eruption.
Yeah, which would be cool, but
And that's actually a great way for a mountain. That's like a safe way, as safe as can be for a mountain to erupt, because if the debris goes straight up, then it comes straight back down. Okay, so the area in which the debris will strike is relatively close to the mountain.
yeah.
Or it could shoot out at like a 45-degree angle at the side of the mountain and just scatter everywhere on that side that it shoots.
Is that what happened?
And that's
Mount St.
exactly what happened to St. Helens.
See, I always just assumed it blew straight up. I didn't realize it went off to the side. That's bizarre.
So what actually, from what I've heard, what triggered Mount St. Helens on top of the magma coming into contact with water was an earthquake. So the earthquake, I think, probably was the magma moving its way through and coming into contact. So if you watch the video of St. Helens eruption, it's like a massive landslide first. It's a massive landslide, and then just all this ash and smoke because of the water, the magma and the water making contact with one another.
But it sounds like there wasn't really like lava that gushed out in the like
No,
old
no,
way
there was not.
That used to happen, right?
There was no. I'm not sure how far the lava field made it, but no, it's not like Hawaii where you can see the lava very easily. I don't think lava was definitely present at Mount St. Helens eruption, but people didn't die really by lava.
Yeah, it's not like Pompeii, right?
No, it's not Pompeii. It's definitely not Pompeii. Yeah. So what was actually crazy about St. Helens eruption? Well, there's many things that's crazy about it, but what was really harmful is because it shot out one direction, it made its way through all these chutes. Okay, like these little small valleys that rivers are in. And it caused these rivers to overflow with ash, dirt, mud, volcanic debris. And these rivers took out bridges. These rivers prevented people from crossing over into safer areas. So the biggest issue about when Rainier erupts is not necessarily the reach of the initial eruption, but these chutes where all the debris will travel down. That's what a lot of people are concerned about, because guess what? There are houses, there are neighborhoods in these chutes.
That's because we, as humans, have just never seemed to understand that. Like, no, I'm just kidding.
No, we're just obsessed with money, and we're like,
just funny that like we build everywhere. And
well, so like my dad's a real estate agent, and there was this natural disaster in Washington. It was about 45 to an hour away from where I grew up, called OSO. And Oso was around this town called Darrington, which was very similar to Granite Falls, Washington, where I grew up. We played football, I remember, against Darrington High School my freshman year. We crushed them. And Darrington was like a logging town, kind of like Granite Falls used to be. And there was this area called Oso, and there was this mudslide that just took out a neighborhood. And I actually, when we were moving, when I was 12 years old, we looked at a house in that neighborhood and decided, unfortunately, not to purchase it. But my dad had sold a house in that neighborhood, and the person who bought that house ended up losing her husband in the mudslide.
oh my!
Yeah, so
How
everyone.
do you lose a person in a mudslide?
Mudslides are. I mean, if you go, I've driven past it several times with my wife. The debris field. You look at this. It's a mountain about the size of the Appalachian Mountains that you see in Shenandoah. I would call it a hill,
Okay,
but
it's
out
like
here,
an East Coast mountain.
It's an East Coast mountain.
But
And
a
it's- and it's
mudslide
just-
just
it
means
looks like
like
a-
a bunch of mud comes down, right?
It looks like a giant took a bite out of the side of the mountain. Like I'm talking about a giant the size of, with the face the size of Baltimore, took a bite out of the side of the mountain.
That's wild.
So
Dang.
it takes the bite out of the side of the mountain. Now maybe about the giant with the face the size of Camden Yards. That's a better comparison. And so imagine all of that debris sliding down very fast, picking up speed, and just going over houses. Like there are trucks, Ford F-150s that are twisted like corkscrews. That's how strong the force is in these mudslides.
Why wouldn't it just get smothered? Why is it twisted? That doesn't seem like it makes sense.
Because imagine like you ever seen river rapids?
I mean, I've been whitewater rafting.
And you see the force.
Yeah.
And if you get trapped under a rock, like people die all the time river rafting because the force is so strong that they're unable to come up from underneath the rock because that's how much force is behind the current. Imagine that times 10.
Oh,
and
like
it's a
it
thicker
went
substance.
over the truck, sort of, and then probably with them underneath of it, it like twisted them up or whatever.
Something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine a
make
massive
more
tidal
sense.
wave of mud and rock. I mean,
Ew.
tsunamis destroy houses.
That sounds gross.
Yeah, but everyone who was in it would really sucked is it was like a Saturday afternoon.
Yeah,
Or
but they had
Sunday,
warning, right?
Saturday. No, it happened. It wasn't something you can run away from. No one had any warning, and that's actually
Wait, then how did anybody actually survive?
Because they were-
now I would ask the other question. Like,
no one survived. The only people who survived are the
I
people
thought
who
you said
weren't
that woman lost her
because she
husband.
wasn't home.
Oh,
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The only people there was one kid who survived, and it's because someone found him right when it started. He was like, fortunately, he was on debris that got pushed up in the mudslide, and they were able to like lift him from a helicopter. But I think there was 138 people,
Oh my!
and 137 of them died, and they were able to recover all their bodies.
This happened in our lifetime.
Yeah, this happened. When was the Oso mudslide?
Also, I can't.
Obama actually. This is during Obama's presidency. He
Oh,
actually
it was
showed
that-
up there.
Oh, okay. You know what? I do feel like I vaguely remember hearing about that. Then actually.
It happened in 2014.
Okay, yeah.
Oso
Then I
landslide.
definitely heard about that. I'm sure because I was in college then.
Yeah, so my dad sold a house in this neighborhood, and he was actually interviewed by the news, and a lot of people were concerned about the legal repercussions of whoever was in charge of the archaeological, not census, the archaeological study of the area. Because when someone is selling land, there needs to be enough information to explain, hey, this is a safe area, especially when you're near places that are susceptible to rock slides and mudslides. You need to be able to say, if someone asks, how likely is a mudslide here? And if there's no study done, then you say there's no study done. But the thing is my dad was told by people who did these studies that the place was not susceptible to mudslides because people had those questions.
Huh.
Clearly they were wrong. So there was this big legal battle afterwards. My dad was not a part of it, but he was part of it insofar as he listened to that information and told people when he sold them their house that everything was going to be perfectly fine.
Interesting.
But no, it wasn't. So, yeah, that was pretty crazy. And yeah, I've driven past it a couple times, and I'm so impressed, not in like a good way, but impressed with like, wow, this is much larger than I thought it was. Fortunately, it was in a remote mountain town where there was only 137 people in that specific section of the town. But yeah, it was a massive slide.
Dang.
Yeah, it was crazy. Crazy stuff. So we said we were going to talk about the 10 tallest mountains in the world.
I don't know if we actually said that to,
Or we thought about
to
it.
the people, though.
No, we
said
didn't say
that
that
to
to the
each other,
people,
so,
Yeah.
that's fine. I mean, we could still briefly mention that, like, I think both of us were looking it up, but, like, I was kind of surprised. Just, like, again, clearly, even though I love, like, hiking and stuff like that, and I enjoy, like, mountains, I don't know a lot about the actual, like, concepts of highest mountains and stuff. And, like, I was looking into it and was actually pretty shocked that, like, pretty much all 10 of the top 10 highest mountains in the world are, like, in the Himalayan area. And they're all, like, part of that same general, like, I think, like, the same, like, mountain range in one sense, or, like, the same, whatever you call that, like, kind of group of mountains, sort of.
Yeah. Do you
which is
know
really
how it
fascinating,
formed?
But no.
So, India is a subcontinent. It's actually not a part
Wait,
of.
what do you mean it's a sub? Oh, of Asia?
Like there are tectonic plates along the edge of India, so it's not connected to Asia. The landmass is actually, I mean, it is physically connected, but underneath the surface, it's a separate landmass.
Huh. That makes no sense to me, but okay. I
So,
believe you.
India, imagine it's like a triangle. Okay, that triangle used to be connected to the southern, not southern tip, but like southern eastern edge of Africa. And the tectonic plates moved it across the Indian Ocean up to Asia.
Oh my.
And it was moving at such a rapid rate, which really to our eyes, we really couldn't see. Like if we were around during the time, we wouldn't be like, wow, this like landmass is moving. No, but it was moving at a rapid rate for how fast tectonic plates move. It was moving at such a rate that it slams into Asia.
Okay.
And the impact is so powerful that that's how those Himalayan mountains shoot up. Now, it wasn't like instantaneous, don't get me wrong.
Wait, what do you mean? Did that cause a bunch of like volcanic eruptions or something? Like what?
Well, see, volcanoes.
Why would those mountains just shoot up like that?
Because if you take two strong forces and slam them together, one of those things goes down and the other shoots up. Okay, or they crumble each other. Okay, but if they're durable, okay, imagine this. I have like a flat surface right here.
Yeah.
My right hand, my left hand, and they're running straight at each other. One's gonna go like this.
I mean, I get what you're saying. I just don't I don't understand how that works with a mountain. Like I
Well,
get
because
the
if
general
one
concept
shoots
you're
up,
saying,
if one shoots up, that's where you get mountains.
But that's so bizarre. That doesn't but then it seems like that mountain would be like weirdly lopsided or something. Like,
But that's actually what you get if you go to Boulder, Colorado, and you see the Flatirons. The Flatirons are kind of like these mountains that are slanted like this, because you can see that the landmass came into contact with another piece of land and kind of grew up it like a ramp. The Flatirons look like ramps. You can actually climb up them on all fours without rope because they're so ramp-like. You can't walk up on them with just 2 feet. You have to get on all fours. But it's actually pretty safe to climb without a rope because it's more of a hill than a whole mountain, the Flatirons.
that's so bizarre.
Yeah.
All of these mountains, I don't know. All these Earth things are just fascinating to me. I don't understand.
Yeah, I mean,
I think it's fascinating. I don't mean like I don't understand in a bad way. I mean like it like makes me. It puts me in awe of like God and creation a little more too, to realize like just how wild like all these things are about creation and mountains and tectonic plates and all that stuff.
Yeah, it's kind of scary too.
It also makes me think about like, I forget if we talked about this. Did we talk about this on the podcast? The like eclipse thing, like the concept of like how people I think we did, right? About how like people back in the day when they witnessed something like an eclipse probably would have been like, oh my gosh, like, you know, the gods are angry or something because the sun's blocked out, and then they go, you know, do some crazy, you know, sacrifice or something, and the sun comes back. But like this kind of thing reminds me of that too, in the sense of like thinking back to like ancient times of humanity when they didn't when we didn't understand things about tectonic plates and whatever else. But like, you know, like think about it. If there were humans, maybe there weren't, you know, maybe scientists would try to tell us that like it happened, you know, whatever, hundreds of thousands or millions of years ago or whatever, and humans didn't exist then or whatever. But let's say there were humans when some of these mountains were formed. There must have been enormous, like that slamming together you described. Like, even if that's slower than we might think it would be in our own head, I guarantee you there was like a huge like earthquake type feeling and probably like a lot of movement and stuff. It'd be interesting to think like how people would have reacted to that. Like if they were, you know, I mean, even a volcano erupting back in the day was probably a weird experience for people, because now we understand a lot more about what you were just saying about the magma and the water and all that. Like, most people didn't understand, I'm sure, back in, you know, ancient times, how a volcano erupting made sense. It was just like, holy crap, that mountain's getting ready to like go crazy. Like I think I've talked about this before with Father Zach or whatever of like the concept of think about like people being like, oh man, that mountain's rumbling over there. Like, maybe the gods are upset with us or something. You know, like, and then all of a sudden the mountain erupts and they're like, what just happened? Like, you know, like,
did we
it's
make
just
a god
fascinating.
mad?
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's just fascinating to think about.
Well, that's why the Genesis account is so interesting, because everyone likes to point it out as similar to all the other creation myths. But the thing about Genesis is it depicts all aspects of creation as subservient to God, whereas the other creation myths equate these aspects of creation to gods themselves, like the sun god, the moon god, the fire god, the wind god. Genesis itself, all these things are subservient to God and are not deified themselves, actually.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
When for people to say, oh, the gods were created by humans to explain natural occurrences, that doesn't seem to extend to Judaism, Christianity, or even Islam, because that's not based in their creation narratives whatsoever. I'm not even sure. Well, I'm not even sure what Islam's creation narrative is actually. But the other polytheistic creation narratives definitely attribute these physical, geographical events
to like a god,
to a
like
god.
each god or whatever is what you're saying, like the moon god and the sun god and the earth god and the wind god and the
Yeah. So I checked the Himalayan thing, how it was formed. The Himalayan range is one of the youngest mountain ranges on the planet.
Really?
Well, so that actually makes sense because
it's so high.
Yeah,
like,
it hasn't had time to erode yet. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's one of the youngest mountain ranges on the planet. It consists mostly of uplifted sedimentary and metamorphic rock. According to the modern theory of plate tectonics, its formation is a result of a continental collision. This is where continents collided, or orogeny, I think that's another name for continental collision, along the convergent boundary main Himalayan thrusts between the Indo-Australian plate and the Eurasian plate. The Arakan Yoma Highlands in Myanmar and the Andaman and Nicobar Islands in the Bay of Bengal were also formed as a result of this collision. So yeah, just as during the Upper Cretaceous period, about 70 million years ago, the north-moving Indo-Australian plate, which it has subsequently broken into the Indian plate and the Australian plate, was moving at about 5.9 inches per year. So imagine a massive landmass the size of India moving 6 inches per year across the Indian Ocean. All right. About 50 million years ago, this fast-moving Indo-Australian plate had completely closed the Tethys Ocean, which I'm assuming is a name for the ocean between that portion of Africa and Asia, the existence of which has been determined by sedimentary rocks settled on the ocean floor. Okay, since both plates were composed of low-density continental crust, they were thrust faulted, which I don't know what that means, and folded into mountain ranges rather than subducting into the mantle. So when you were asking like how was it formed, apparently there are certain substances, like certain plates, that will like not create mountains, but because of the makeup of the matter of this plate or of this continent, it shot up into mountains for some reason.
Yeah, I mean the one thing that I do find fascinating about all this that, you noticed you read it out a minute ago when you were reading something from that is, and I think this is the thing that I always look at with all these kind of modern scientific views of things, is the modern theory of tectonic plates. Because the reality is, we don't know. Like, now, I'm not saying that they're wrong necessarily, but like, none of us were there however many millions of years ago that they're claiming these things happen.
50, yeah.
They're doing it based on like scientific research, which is good, but like, it's basically like well-educated guesswork in a sense, like, which I've just always found fascinating because like, I'm not even necessarily trying to say this in some sort of critical sense. It's more just the sense of like the fascinating concept of again, more just looking at the fascinating like creation, like just thinking about the fact that like things were created and they ended up somehow the way they are. Like we can try to figure that out and explain it in all these like complicated tectonic plate ways and all that, but ultimately like there's a giant mountain range over there that like happens to be there and seems to be like really big and apparently is getting bigger. That's like, those are the things we can like perceivably, I don't want to say prove because that sounds very like modern actually in my own way.
It sounds
but
Hume,
it sounds what?
A little more like what Hume would say, because we can perceive it.
Yeah,
we don't know for certain until we experience it.
Yeah, which that's not necessarily what I'm trying to get at.
Right.
But it's more just that like with any historical creation thing, I think maybe more what I'm getting at is the fact that like, you and I have talked about this with history in general, that, a big part of history is really just seeing what other people have said throughout history. There's no way to like, we can try to date things and we can try to figure things out and all that. And those are good theories, but really the only like tangible historical evidence is like, I would say arguably is like what's the right word? Like the witness of the witness of the people, like the history of the people. And obviously, yes, I understand that like history can be influenced by particular people in particular circumstances and all that. But like, yeah, I don't know. It's just interesting. I just find all that fascinating with like creation and mountains and things like that.
Yeah, I guess it is difficult to discern when people are making assumptions or doing guesswork. I don't know enough about plate tectonics. From what I've heard, it sounds sound, but I know there are also experiences when it comes to determining the age of certain canyons. Like there was a canyon formed, nothing near the Grand Canyon, but there was a canyon formed at somewhere in the United States after a massive flood. And what a lot of people were fascinated about the formation of this canyon is it happened in just a couple of days. But canyons of the same size as this canyon, people attribute to being formed over hundreds of thousands, millions of years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it is difficult to discern, I guess, what's guesswork and what's certain, and whether or not we're just off the wrong. Like we've made one assumption at one point in the scientific method, and that's led to all these other errors. And so maybe we should, I don't know.
Well, and I think maybe part of my point, again, not to try to dive too much into that stuff, it's more just that, like, again, I just find, like, Earth and all that stuff just fascinating. Because, like, even things, I realize this has nothing to do with mountains, but even things like, what are those, sinkholes. Like, the whole concept of, like, sinkholes is wild. Like, that, like, these holes just, like, and again, like, people will attribute that scientifically to, like, movements of tectonic plates and various other things like that. And, like, fair enough. But the reality is that we still don't know how to predict those, and there are times when they just like pop up, and people are like, "What? Why did like, X amount of feet from the ground just disappear? Like, what the frick just happened?" Like, it's just a fascinating like thing that like we still. I think part of my point is maybe just that like it's fun. I don't actually have any issue with like trying to figure out why those things are the way they are, but it's also to me like a good practice in like just accepting the fact that like there's a lot of things that we may never fully understand, and they're fascinating, and that's like kind of cool to me actually because they're so fascinating. Like,
do you want to know what the tallest mountain in the solar system is? It's
sure.
It's Olympus Mons
on Mars, right?
Yeah, and you know how high it is. So Everest is 29,000.
Yeah, how many feet is Everest? Because what I was looking at earlier was meters, and like it was massive meters.
It's 8,000.
It's 8,000 something meters. Yeah. But wait. So how tall are they claiming this mountain?
So
on
Everest
Mars
altitude is 29,032 feet. Okay, Olympus Mons is around 72,000 feet. So double Everest.
That's more than double, right?
It's more than double. It's an extra
2.5
10,000.
or something like that. Yeah.
It's an extra 10,000. Yeah. Isn't that insane? And you can look at a picture of it, and it's this massive structure on Mars. And what's really crazy is it's about the surface area of Arizona, the whole mountain. It's kind of like a super, I guess this by definition would be a super volcano, kind of like Yellowstone is a super volcano.
Is it a volcano? This mountain on Mars? Does it say that?
It is a large shield volcano.
Huh. That's fascinating.
A shield volcano is a type of volcano named for its low profile, resembling a shield lying on the ground. Okay, yeah, so you don't notice its growth. It looks like it's a very slow incline. It's not like this massive
I guess
structure
that's
that
why,
stands up
because I
in the
guess you're
horizon.
saying it's the size of Arizona. It must be like super wide, even though it's so absurdly tall. But that also fits with how it's so absurdly tall, because
Yeah, there's no way you could have something.
if you think about like the incline and all that, the incline would be massive if it were 72,000 feet high, and it was like the width of a mountain like Everest or something. Like it'd be the incline on that would be insane.
Yeah, can you imagine? It's just crazy to think of something 72,000 feet, like twice Everest.
Yeah, although I mean,
It's crazy.
that's fascinating to realize that Everest is like. I know this is going to sound funny, but I'm going to give a reason for why I'm saying only 29,000 feet high is because the interesting, fascinating thing about that is that when we fly, the planes often go up to 36 to 40,000 feet.
Yeah. I
So
think
like,
about that. I
that
think of
means
Everest
that
every time I
planes
fly.
typically are going higher than Mount Everest,
Well, yeah.
which is fascinating to realize, like how freaking high up we are. Now, to your point about the mountain on Mars, that would be a plane flying almost double the height that it normally does, which is wild to think about that. But
yeah, I think Olympus Mons would actually be at the edge of our atmosphere, which is
Probably. I mean, Mars is a bigger planet, I think, isn't it? So that makes sense that they have a bigger
slightly bigger
atmosphere. But
yeah, no, that's just crazy to me. Just think that there's a structure that big, but yeah. So, is there any mountain that you want to climb that you're like, I need to do this?
I mean, I don't know. I've had like various different, like at one point I wanted to climb like the Andes or whatever down in Chile, like the Patagonia thing, but I don't know that I really realistically want to do that. I mean, I think it'd be really fun to do. I think realistic ones that I could do that would be fun would be like the Colorado mountains or like Washington State or somewhere like that. Like I would like to go see some of the Western mountains at some point because I've never really like actually been to them or been on them, and that would be fun.
The tallest mountain on the West Coast is actually in California, and it's relatively easy to get up. It's not a technical.
Wait, which one is it?
It's in California.
Yeah, but what's it called? That's what I'm saying.
Tallest mountain.
Because I think I might know which one you're talking about. And I can't remember the name either. But
U.S. Mount. Nope. Oh, sorry, Denali. Is in lower 48. There we go. Mount Whitney.
Oh yeah, Mount Whitney.
14,505 feet. A lot of people who go on the Pacific Crest Trail, it's not a part of the PCT, but it's off of the PCT. So a lot of people will, like, when they're doing the PCT, just hit up Mount Whitney one day. Yeah.
There was my dad always talks about, there was this ice cream. Sorry, this is unrelated, but it's related to the name real quick. There was this ice cream place in California that my family used to go, or I guess maybe even my dad who used to. Yeah, I think it was when he was single back in the day that he used to go to this place called Farrell's.
Farrell's?
Yeah, Farrell's ice cream. And they had some like wacky things that they would do, and one of them was you could order, I'm trying to remember how much it was, but you could order a Mount Whitney was one of the things, and it was something like 17 scoops of ice cream or something like that. Like it was like obviously intended to be for like a group. And then they also had something called the Zoo that was like 20 something scoops of ice cream, but it was just like
bigger than Mount Whitney.
A zoo. Yeah. But like, and they would have like a bell or something that, like, if you got the Mount Whitney and like your group like ate it, they would like ring this bell and like make a whole thing out of like you.
Did your dad and his friends ever eat a Mount Whitney?
I think supposedly one of his friends did it on his own one time, which was just disturbing. But this guy used to eat a lot of stuff apparently. So he was one of those people who just like ate. Somehow had like a hole in his stomach or something. He could just eat a lot of stuff. But yeah, Mount Whitney. I've heard good things about that one too. Yeah.
Yeah, I think my cousin climbed it recently, because you have to get a permit to climb it, I believe.
Oh my, do you? Is there like technical stuff on it, or is it just?
It's not technical. It's like with these mountains, there's only specific ways up them. It's not just like a free for all. Like, oh, you can climb the mountain anywhere.
Isn't that true of like a lot of the mountains?
Yeah, yeah.
You only want to go up the trails typically or whatever? Like,
well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, to get up on top of things, there's typically only specific routes you can take, especially depending on the time of year. And if you have a lot of people trying to climb it, you get log jammed, which is actually a dangerous thing. This happens at Everest a lot.
Well, yeah, that's true. That's true. I know it's well regulated at Everest, but well, not well. I meant well as in like they regulate it a lot. I don't know if it's actually done well, but
they try to. There was a disaster on Mount Everest that John Krakauer, who's written a few great books on outdoor adventures, like Into the Wild. He wrote a book called Into Thin Air, which was John Krakauer was actually at the disaster. He was one of the climbers who climbed Everest, and it was the biggest disaster in Everest that the mountain has seen in quite some time, where a large amount of people died in one event. And one of the causes people argue is because at Mount Everest, you have people from all over the world trying to climb it, and you have different guides from different countries. So you have the French groups, you have the Italian groups, you have the Swiss groups, you have the American groups, you have the New Zealand
British
groups.
ones, yeah.
And they're all conflicting because they're all trying to satisfy their clients and get them to the peak. But it can become overpopulated, And so there was this Netflix documentary that came out recently. I think it's called 14 Peaks. That doesn't sound...
Huh. Would that be about the Himalayas or something? Like
it's about this guy, 14 Peaks. Yeah. So 14 Peaks is about this guy named Nimzadi but he goes by Nims, and he climbs the 14 tallest mountains in the world in 7 months. And he really blew up before the documentary because I think it was him who took a picture on Mount Everest of a massive log jam close to, I think it was at the Hillary Step, which is a section right before the summit. And there's like 100 people tied to a rope all on like this alpine ridge where if you fall one side, you're dead. You fall on the other side, you're dead. And it's all these, it's like 100 people just jammed in this log jam. And it's very dangerous because you're on a mountain where you're in the death zone, where if a human being is in the death zone for a certain period of time, the deprivation of oxygen causes them to die. Mm-hmm. So when you're summiting Everest, when you get to a certain base camp, you're like, we're going up, but we're coming down real fast.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Because we're going to die. Yeah. And when you have this log jam taking place, miscommunication, ropes getting falling apart, it's really messy. So Mount Everest, really sad. A lot of people have testified to the fact that Mount Everest is a complete mess now because people just dump oxygen canisters everywhere. It's like just a dump, unfortunately.
That's what I've heard. Yeah, it's become like super commercialized, and so there's just like trash everywhere and just like a mess. And yeah.
That's pretty heartbreaking.
I've definitely heard that. But wait, so do you need a permit to climb the mountain that you're gonna climb in Washington?
Yeah, St. Helens. I have a permit already. It's pretty easy. I think.
Is that just to like? I assume based on what we're talking about here, that and Mount Whitney and stuff like that, it's more about just. It's not actually that you really have to go through anything per se. It's just to limit the number of people who are there at once, right?
Per day, yeah. Yeah, I cannot climb the day before. I cannot climb the day after. I can't start the day before and come down the day I have the permit. I can only climb the day I have the permit.
Are you allowed to camp on there? Or what? How would you go up and come down the next day?
So you can get up to 4,000 feet on Mount St. Helens without a permit. But once you get past 4,000 feet on the trail, you need a permit. And that is to do what you said, to limit the amount of people on certain sections of the mountain. Yeah. So, because you don't want you don't want people overcrowding the trail. We're actually going to wake up super early to try and avoid the crowd, which I'm perfectly fine with because I have kids and getting up early in the morning is not a problem for me anymore. So,
how long of a hike does that take typically? Do you know?
It says it takes 7 to 12 hours.
Dang.
I think we'll be under 12 for sure.
Man, how many miles is it in total?
From the 4,000 foot point, which is
that where you're starting?
That's probably where we're going to start.
Foot? Okay.
Yeah, it's going to take, I think it's an 8 mile round trip. It's 4 miles up, and it's about 1,000 feet per mile. But I'm pretty sure 1,000 feet in elevation gain per mile. But I'm pretty sure it's the last mile that sucks. There's a coworker of mine who's climbed Mount St. Helens, and he was telling me he's like that last little section. He says you're walking up it and you feel like you're moving an inch with every step because that's how steep it is.
Oh,
yeah.
Dang.
Yeah.
Wait, but it's pretty much all walking then, right? Because that last section
depends on the presence
of as like mostly walking, right?
Yeah, it depends on how much snow is present. I mean, I'll be climbing it in July.
Wait, that's a good point. Do you have to wear like a jacket or something, even though it's July?
I'll probably have it in my backpack. But I've seen a lot of people on top of pictures of people on top of Mount St. Helens just in shirts. Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But I'll check the weather report and see if I need ice crampons for certain sections. And
crampons? Is that something you put on your boots or something?
Yeah, it cramps onto your boot, and it's like little spikes.
Oh, see, those would have been helpful when I was in New Hampshire.
Or
climbing that snow, probably.
Yeah. Or snowshoes.
Yeah.
Those would have been clutch. If you're in deep snow, snowshoes are the way to go. But if it's ice, it's the type of snow. I mean, snow towards the end of the season or into the summer basically just becomes ice because it melts still, but it freezes overnight. And so
I know what you mean. It's like that weird middle ground stuff. Yeah.
For people who snowboard and ski, it's kind of the substance that you're dealing with towards the end of the snowboarding and ski season. It's not very fun. People like that fresh pow. And that's why a lot of people go snowboarding and skiing at the beginning of or end of fall, beginning of winter type of thing.
I don't think I've ever heard somebody say fresh pow.
Oh, really? The fresh pow, bro?
I mean, I know what you mean, like fresh powder, but that's that's funny.
Oh, yeah, fresh pow.
Fresh pow. You gotta get that fresh pow.
Yeah. So
is it just two of you going, or how?
So it's myself, my brother, and my best friend from high school.
Okay.
And so
nice.
We're all in pretty good shape.
I guess you'll find out soon how good a shape you actually are in.
All three of us exercise a pretty good amount, and I'll be there for a week. So, and
you gonna climb some other things before that to get yourself ready or whatever.
Just to get used to a little bit of altitude because I think so. St. Helens, I want to get the actual number. of what it used to be. St. Helens altitude versus previous. See, I'm pretty sure it lost about 1,000 feet. Okay, so elevation of the mountain was reduced by approximately 1,370 feet at the eruption. So it used to be 9,677 feet, and now it's 8,307 feet.
Okay,
So
interesting.
it's not that big of a mountain. The tallest mountain I've been on, like I've climbed, is Mount Pilchuck, and it was over 5,000 feet.
Well, as long as it doesn't erupt while you're up there.
Oh no!
I'm just kidding.
The nice thing about St. Helens is because it erupted out the side. There's this massive crater, and people aren't allowed in the crater at St. Helens.
I would think so. Yeah, that would not be good.
It hasn't been active since '08. I remember because I was homeschooled, and my mom woke me up one day, and she's like, "We're going to St. Helens," and it was while it was active, which is really cool. And like we went to like you were allowed on the mountain. Like if it erupted, it just would have been lava spewing, and it would have just gone like down the avalanche chutes away from where we were actually located at the observation point. But it was a cool trip that I did with my cousins where we just took a trip to St. Helens one day. And that was really fun. But it hasn't been active for quite some time. I think I saw something about it being a little, there was a little noise that it made like this past fall. But if it erupts while we're up there, we're going to be on the backside of the mountain. We'd have to probably worry about rock slides a little bit.
I mean, I was joking. I mean,
as a father, it's definitely crossed my mind. I'm like, what would happen if I was on St. Helens and it erupted? Probably have to worry about rock slide, but I don't think we'd have to worry about anything else because it's the way the mountain looked 5 years ago to now. They look like two completely different structures, which is insane.
That's weird.
Yeah.
Wow.
When we finish, I'm going to have to show you the video of it erupting.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that'll be sick.
Wait, okay, you just said 45 years ago, and I did a thing where I thought about it, and I was like, holy freaking crap, 1980 was 45 years ago, basically.
Yeah.
That's disturbing to think about. But,
yeah.
Well, I would be remiss if I didn't mention, though, mostly because Deacon Joe Ryan, who will soon be a priest next year, but mentioned it to me of Blessed Pier Giorgio Frassati.
Oh, yes.
Quite the mountain climber. And
yes.
so, just make sure you enjoy him.
Well, he's being beatified.
Is he? Well, no, he's blessed.
Or he's blessed, but he's being...
Is he being canonized?
He's being canonized, yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
I don't think I knew that. Oh,
Yeah.
that's cool. I heard about Carlo Acutis, but I didn't hear about Frassati. That's
so
cool.
it'll be Saint...
Pier Giorgio Frassati.
Yeah, which would be cool.
But he was a big verso l'alto, like to the heights. So
to the heights.
He was big on mountains.
Definitely use his intercession while we're climbing. Say a prayer before we go. Yeah, I'm stoked. I'm so pumped. I love the mountains. It makes it difficult. Like I finished reading John Eldridge's like Wild at Heart.
Oh yeah, Wild at Heart. That's a great book.
I'm just like
that's your adventure for right now, right?
I just want to freaking run, man.
Yeah.
I want to go do something.
Yeah.
So I'm stoked.
Well, and that's like I think I haven't had a ton of chances to like hike up huge mountains, but one thing I love is just being in mountains. Even
that's easily the
I
best
realized
part.
I realized that like the East Coast mountains are not as big as the West Coast ones, but even just like camping, like when we went to the Smokies a few years ago, we went and camped in the Smokies, and like I've camped in or like I've hiked in the Appalachian Trail and stuff like that, small mountains, but just being out in like the mountainy area, like just kind of being on it and being like away from the hustle and bustle and the noise of the world and all that is just like so fun. Like,
oh, I love it. Yeah, there's like an alpine smell with the trees that I just can't get enough of.
That's actually something I think I've only smelled when I was at Mount Washington in New Hampshire.
Yeah.
That smell, that mountain smell.
I've never smelt it on the East Coast.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, I think the only place I've had that was Mount Washington.
I totally took it for granted in Washington State when I smelt it almost every day in my town. I smelt it in the Rockies. But yeah, I could definitely see you smelling it up in Maine. It's something about the pine trees and the altitude, and it's sweet. It's like
it is.
It's like nature. I mean, nature's sugar is kind of a silly thing to say, but it's this sweet smell that kind of just rejuvenates you, and I'm excited to smell it when I'm climbing Mount St. Helens.
Yeah, it's gonna be awesome.
Yeah, I'm stoked, man. Cool. Well, anything else to say about mountains?
No, I mean that's what I wanted to. I think we had a good kind of conversation about all this. So
that was fun. Yeah, cool. Well, yeah, I'm stoked to climb Mount St. Helens, and maybe next time we record, I will have climbed Mount St. Helens.
Well, yeah, and I think that's something maybe to give people a little bit of a heads up here that like we've been a little spotty anyway, but just clearly if Rhys is going to be away for a couple weeks climbing Mount St. Helens and stuff, we probably won't be recording for another month or so. So hopefully we'll be looking to get back on a regular schedule, but it probably won't be till the end of July and August or whatever. But
yeah, because I'll be next week. I have work every day, which is normal, but then we have VBS in the evening, and then I go to Steubenville, and then I leave for Seattle right away. So,
yeah, exactly.
Cool.
So
awesome.
But
well, this has been Of Mountains and Men.
Yeah,
I'm Rhys,
and I'm Peter,
and I hope you guys have a blessed day. Take care.